With more tonight, Lieutenant Colonel Michael WALTZ, former Green Beret commander and a Fox News contributor, and Jamie Metzl, senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and author of Eternal Sonata. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you all here. Michael WALTZ, let me start with you. Does it appear that what the White House did here worked?
Well, Martha, finally someone stood up to the schoolyard bully and punched back. And I think what we've seen for decades here is that the North Koreans weren't used to that. I mean, look at the recent op-ed from former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, who said, we just need to get used to it. We just need to accept that North Korea is going to have a nuclear arsenal and be able to hold the region and the United States hostage. So I think that was incredibly effective. But we cannot get complacent. We cannot rest on our laurels. We have to maintain pressure on China. The North Koreans are very good at ratcheting up tensions and then ratcheting them down and staying just below that threshold of war. Meantime, they're buying time to improve their ICBMs, to get more on mobile launchers, to go from liquid fuel to solid fuel, which means they can launch faster and to even develop a submarine capability. So we have to keep the pressure up.
I mean, it's clear that this is far from over. But, Jamie, let me turn to you, because I can't remember a time when we saw this sort of dynamic, where you have China banning some of the major imports that North Korea sends to them, and that combination with the threat that China says, we don't have your back. If they come after you, we don't have your back. That's different.
It's not that different. Basically, the United States lost this exchange with North Korea over the last week. Because think about it. Where were we 1 week ago? We had already had 5 rounds of sanctions by the United States and the UN against North Korea. Now we have a 6th. It's very much a continuation of the policy. North Korea was never going to attack Guam. And so we've had this whole exchange where the President of the United States comes down to, for the first time ever, comes down to the rhetorical level of the leader of North Korea, and we're hurling insults back and forth. And then at the end of the week, people are saying, oh, it's this big victory that North Korea didn't attack Guam. They were never going to do that because that would be suicidal, and they've known that for 70 years. So I don't know why people are saying North Korea blinked, because North Korea won this exchange, and we'll see what happens next.
Michael, what do you think about that?
Well, I think, frankly, I disagree. Look, the North Koreans are used to this kind of passive approach. Look, the entire world over the last 8 years was used to a passive approach, whether it was Russia, whether it was Putin, you name it, they were used to basically the United States backpedaling. And I think at this point we made a stand, and we took a stand. And I think it took the President of the United States to have that kind of shock and awe rhetoric, so to speak, to change the Chinese calculus and to change the North Korean calculus. Look, until this point, the Chinese and the North Koreans believed that they have to have an arsenal in order to basically for the regime to survive. Now I think there is a growing question in that part of the world on whether if they get an arsenal, will they survive? And the Chinese, I hope, it remains to be seen because they have played us before, but the Chinese may now be seeing the North Koreans as more of a problem than they're worth. But we have to maintain the pressure. They have both done this before.
I think both things are true. I mean, I don't think we've seen this behavior from China in quite this way. And we also know that the game will continue and it goes on. But has the chessboard shifted a little bit in this dynamic? And that may be something that is due to the moves that we've seen from the Trump administration. So in terms of Iran, quick thought on that. Jamie, Rouhani has said that he would turn the power back on to their Iranian nuclear program in a heartbeat if we follow through with these sanctions.
Well, the United States is pushing forward with sanctions because because Iran has violated UN Security Council resolutions on ballistic missiles.
Shocking.
And so if Iran chooses to withdraw from the nuclear accord, that's their decision, and then the sanctions will automatically slap back. And so that is something that it's up to them to take that decision. If they do, there will be consequences.
Michael, quick thought.
Yeah. Well, look, the Iranians can't have it both ways. On the one hand, they want their ballistic missile program, the American hostages that they've taken, the terrorism they're supporting across the region to be outside of the nuclear agreement. But on the other hand, when we start holding them accountable for all of those actions, which we're doing now with additional sanctions, then it's back to, well, we're going to tear, it's essentially an excuse to tear up the deal. So, we have to maintain the pressure. Again, I think it's something that the world is not used to, America taking a strong stand and really hold the Iranians accountable, and particularly, as I mentioned before, for the American hostages that they're holding right now today.
Very important.
Unjustly.
And clearly, what happened to Otto Warmbier had a major impact on the president and has had some impact on this policy that we've seen as well. Thanks, you guys. Good to see you both.
Sure.